I just want to be out of the crowd.
I feel like we're standing in front of everybody over there.
Test. Test.
I don't think you hear that. Okay. It's just louder.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I see a lot of friendly faces in this crowd today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving your time and attention this evening to welcome a very special guest back to Des Moines. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kirsten Anderson, and my new life's mission is to put an end to workplace harassment in our lifetime. We can do it, and I want your help. I do that through advocacy and education. And I have been traveling all over the country, and the reason that my life's mission is to put an end to workplace harassment is because I experienced something grotesque, vile, absurd in this day and age, and that is sexual harassment at our Iowa State House. I knew it was wrong. I took the brave step to speak up, speak out, and let the public know what was really going on in our Iowa State House. As I travel the country and I talk to primarily victims, there's a common thread that runs through everyone's story, and that is an imbalance of power and people abusing their power inappropriately and a fundamental lack of respect. A fundamental lack of respect that we have going on in our country right now, and it has to end. So you can imagine when I was invited to go to lunch with Senator Gillibrand, I jumped on that. I jumped on that quick, hard and fast. And I am so excited because she's also advocating for a speak-up culture. She is a brave warrior in a time where we need bravery now more than ever. We need people to speak up. We need people to understand their self-worth. And I keep coming back to this word, passion. And that day when I had lunch with Senator Gillibrand, she breezed into the room. She exuded this passion that is unmistakable. And you'll see it when she takes this microphone. You'll see it. And that's unique in this day and age. She's passionate about her faith. She's passionate about humility. She is so humble, and she'll be the first one to tell you that she's made mistakes, she's learned from them, and she's a better leader for it. That's powerful. That's leadership that we need today. We need it now. She's passionate about people. She has been advocating long before I have to help victims of sexual harassment, sexual abuse, and assault in the military, on college campuses. Her track record proves it. She's passionate about bipartisanship because realistically, she knows that's how you get stuff done, in a bipartisan way. You have to work with your opponents on things. She sees the people behind the problems. I want you to see what I see in her. I want you to give her time and attention that she deserves because she's the real deal. She's what this country needs right now, and she is brave. I want to thank you for celebrating bravery with me today. I mean, really, that's what we're talking about. That's the Gillibrand theme in this presidency. That's bravery. Let's be brave together. Let's start a brave sisterhood, a brave brotherhood together. Let's do it. Do it with me. Do it with Senator Gillibrand. I am so proud and happy to endorse this amazing woman to lead our country. She's the president for us. She's the right candidate. I'll turn it over to her, and I want to thank her for her time, her bravery, and her passion. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. I have to say, Kirsten, I am blown away by your bravery, your courage, your strength, and your inspiration. You are an inspiration to all of us. You're an inspiration to every survivor in America who dared to speak up and speak out, who dared to take on power, who dared to speak their truth, even when it would ruin or destroy your life, even if it would end your career, even if you would be demeaned and disregarded and dismissed. But you stood there and you said, no, not anymore. And that took enormous courage, enormous bravery, and I am inspired by you. And that common bravery that women and men make those steps every day, that's what makes our country great. It's when someone like you will say, I'm not going to put up with it, I'm not going to accept it, and it's not okay. And when you speak up, what it does is protect the next woman or man who is going to be demeaned or devalued or, God forbid, sexually harassed or sexually assaulted. Like, you are the one who stands in the breach to make sure there is not another survivor. There is not another person victimized. And this presidency, this campaign for the presidency is so much about you and your voice. And I can tell you one thing, President Trump is somebody who demeans others. He demeans and he devalues the vulnerable. He has more than a dozen sexual assault allegations against him. He demeans everyone, whether it's a transgender member of our troops, whether it's a Muslim, whether it's someone who is seeking asylum, whether it's someone who just wants freedom of the press or freedom of the judiciary. He demeans and devalues all of us. He's a president who puts his name on every building because he wants us to believe that he is strong. He is not. Our president is a coward. And this country deserves a president who is brave, a president who is strong, a president who does what's right. This country deserves a president who will go through fire to do what is right. I'm running for president because I believe we need a president who is brave, a president who will do what's right, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I don't even know if we can remember what it's like to have a president who's brave. When John F. Kennedy said, I want to put a man on the moon in the next 10 years, not because it's easy, but because it's hard, it was because it was a measure of how strong we were as a country, how innovative, our strength, our excellence, our competitiveness. We need a president who will take on the special interests, who will be willing to get money out of politics, who's willing to restore the vote to you and I, who's willing to show up to town halls across the country and answer the question of the people. That's what we deserve. And that's why I'm running for president. And I know I can bring this country together because, God, we know we must bring this country together. We must be able to speak to one another and remember that what makes us strong is when we care about one another, when we actually believed in the golden rule, when we believe that you should treat others the way you want to be treated, when we should care about the least among us. And I know how to do this because that's what I've done. I'm willing to take on the special interests and stand up when it's right. I've taken on the Pentagon twice. The first time over Don't Ask, Don't Tell, one of the most corrosive policies ever in this country that denied men and women the right to serve based on who they loved. I took on the Pentagon again over sexual assault in the military when they were unwilling to prosecute people who committed rape and sexual assault, unwilling to hold them accountable. I've taken on the banks, voting against the bank bailout twice because it would have left the taxpayers holding the bag. And I voted against and fought against the culture of corruption in Washington, actually passing legislation to make sure that members of Congress don't engage in insider trading on all the non-public information they get. So the truth is, I do stand up when it's hard, and especially when it's hard, and that's why I'm running against President Trump, because the division, the hate, the fear he has placed on this country is really ripping apart the moral fabric of who we are. So each one of us has to ask ourselves, what are we willing to do? Are we willing to be brave? Are we willing to take back this democracy and make sure our voices are as loud as any Koch brother, to make sure we restore voting rights in this country so that it's one person, one vote, and money doesn't drown out all speech and the special interests decide everything? We do need to be brave again, and I know we will follow your lead, Kirsten. Your lead inspires me to be brave every day, and it inspires Iowans all across your state. So thank you. Thank you for being brave and standing up and speaking truth, your truth, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. And that's why I'm running for President of the United States, because I will stand up to do what's right, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Thank you, and God bless you. Sure. Yeah. We can take questions if you have questions, especially from your supporters. Go ahead. Kathy.
Hi, I have your wine.
Thank you. This is an Iowa wine, which I'm going to taste right now.
It's very okay. Very okay. So it's kind of surprising.
I like it.
So my question, no surprise, is about the climate crisis.
Yes.
And we've spoken to you about it once before.
Yes.
We feel that maybe it's getting buried a little bit. You know, sometimes people talk first about what's most important, and we're not hearing a lot of talk about the climate crisis in general sometimes with candidates. So we were at an event with you a while ago, and one of our friends asked you, would you make climate your #1 issue? And you said
yes.
It is your #1 issue.
It is.
Can you talk about that?
Yes. So I believe that global climate change is the greatest threat to humanity that exists today, and the proof of it is in Iowa today. I went and toured the flooding in western Iowa, and I can tell you, it was devastating. I saw these families whose homes were destroyed. I went to one family's home, Fran and Jason, and saw their home, and it looked like the house was shaken to the core. Every piece of furniture was upended. The refrigerator was torn out of the kitchen. Mud rose throughout the whole house. It was 10 feet of water. That is what global climate change does. Severe weather comes more and more often. Not only do we have droughts in Iowa, but then it's followed by flooding. Your last big flood was in 2011. Now it's 2019. I promise you, your next big flood will be sooner than the last one, because that's what the impact of global climate change is. So I believe in the Green New Deal, because the fact is it's an aspirational goal that we need to try to reach. As I said earlier, John F. Kennedy said, I want to put a man on the moon in 10 years, not because it's easy, but because it's hard. He did not know if he would get a man on the moon in 10 years. But he knew it was an organizing principle. He knew it was the thing that they would compete against. They'd compete with Russia to be the first one there. It was the space race. So why not create a green energy space race? Why not compete with the Chinese to say we are going to be the first country to get to net zero carbon emissions? We're going to be the first country to figure out how to have renewable energy sources, whether it's wind, solar, geothermal, hydropower, or biofuels. We're going to be the greatest engineers and scientists on the planet. They're going to figure out how to have energy efficiency and new energy sources. Why not inspire every kid in America to want to be that engineer or scientist or mathematician who's going to figure it out? And the nice thing about the Green New Deal, it's a platform of ideas, all of which are already bipartisan. Infrastructure, green jobs, and clean air and clean water. And that's it. That's all that's in there. So green jobs. We know that if you teach young kids STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, they will be poised to be the inventors and innovators of the future. We know that if you guarantee clean air and clean water, it's going to help Iowans, because honestly, you've got issues with nitrates because of farming, and those farmers have no resources to deal with that, so you need to be able to provide that, to guarantee every time you turn on a faucet that the water's clean, that doesn't have lead or nitrates or PFOA or PFAS, to know that the water that you're bathing your children in, cooking your food in, is clean and safe. And last and most simple, infrastructure. Every state in America wants infrastructure. We want to actually fund a new electric grid. We want to fund mass transit. We want to fund roads, bridges, sewers, high-speed rail, rural broadband. It makes sense. It's the greatest economic engine. So why not do all those bipartisan things with your ambition of net zero carbon emissions? And we don't know if we can get there, but why wouldn't you try? And the one thing I would do is add putting a price on carbon, because you want to use market forces as the way to actually create competition and use those forces to drive down costs. If you provide a lower tax rate for innovation and for industries that want to be green and efficient, and create a higher tax rate for those that are going to pollute, money will flow towards the innovators. So I think we need to do this, because if we don't, we will see mass flooding, we will see more wildfires, we will see more death. It is something we must do. Cheers, thank you.
Education. I retired from the state, so Kirsten and I've already touched base. Thank you, girl. And as a retiree, senior citizen, you know, you have to keep us busy. There's a program that just, because we get out and harass politicians, there's a program that just got cut. It affected senior citizens, it affected education, and it affected children. We worked with the teachers to help. Some special child needs a little extra hug in the morning, needs help learning the language, reading, etc. And this program got cut. Now, believe me, you don't want me out here harassing you all the time. Some people know me over here. So, but to see something that affected 3 big issues, I'm like, excuse me? And I have to kind of keep my mouth shut till the end of June. I'm still working till the end of June. July 1st, there's going to be a nasty letter to the editor, something. But yeah, and when you, I shouldn't take so much time, but one of our senators, oh, you guys are great. We really appreciate what you do. Then he turns around, and I overheard him, and I'm hearing impaired, and he says, "What a waste of money." And then, yeah.
Wow.
And then, you know, a year later, what's that tell you? The education is needed mainly.
Yeah.
I'm not worried that much about myself, but the education with the children.
Yes.
And preschool, that's what I work with.
So, you know, as I've traveled around Iowa, 3 issues come to people's minds: healthcare, education, and jobs. 3 top issues all through Iowa and all through the rest of the country. And on education, I've heard a lot of concerns. Obviously, I want to fully fund early childhood education. We should have universal pre-K for many reasons, because every dollar you put into early childhood education, you get about $11 out in productivity. So we want to have universal pre-K, and we want to have affordable quality daycare, so the parents can be in the workforce earning their full potential, and the kids get access to that quality early childhood education. For our public schools, that's typically an issue for the states, but there's a huge role the federal government can play. One of the things we should stop doing is unfunded mandates. It's outrageous that we keep asking the states to fund things that we don't actually provide the resources for. And I'll give you one example: special ed. Special ed in this country, the federal government was supposed to pay 40% of all special ed. Well, so far we've gotten up to about 18%, not even half. I think special ed should be fully funded up to 50% by the federal government. That would make more resources available for our teachers so they could get paid more, and they'd also have the resources they need for their classrooms. I would also encourage the federal government to do basic investments of bricks and mortar. Make sure every school in the country has access to basic funds for bricks and mortar. I'd encourage states, and you guys already do, to have equalization in funding. It's really important in a state like New York, where if you're in a poor area, you have poor public schools, but if you're in a rich area, you have great public schools. That's not right. So we want to get to equalization in funding. And I think the federal government can also spend money on things like STEM education, helping teachers have more of the resources they need to inspire kids with hands-on learning in early childhood education, grade school, and high school, so they can pursue STEM fields. funding things like music and arts and gym and civics. All of that would make sense. So I do see a role for the federal government in helping support our public schools and our teachers. And last, we need to make higher education far more affordable. We need debt-free college. And my big idea to do that is national public service. Actually asking any young person in this country, if you're willing to do a year of public service, you can get 2 years of state school or community college free. If you do 2 years of public service, you can get 4 years free. That way, you not only change the heart and character of this country in one generation, but you begin to make sure industries that are service industries get the workforce they need for the future, whether it's teaching or healthcare or those green jobs or first responders or our military. It's an expansion of the GI Bill.
Thank you.
Welcome. Go ahead. You can have the microphone.
Okay.
So they can hear you.
I work for the largest food pantry network in Des Moines. We serve about 17,500 individuals every single month in this community who need food assistance. So about 14% of Iowans live at or below the poverty line, and the United Way has found that another 25% of Iowans are not making a survival wage. So that means almost 40% of Iowans are barely scraping by, going into debt just to cover their living expenses. So I want to know, what are your policy proposals to address that?
So what you really talked about is poverty. And so we have to deal with that in a global approach, because you're going to actually try to address income inequality. Separately, we have to address the issue of hunger, which is fundamentally related. So I'll give you one idea on alleviating poverty, and I will give you what I've done on alleviating hunger and what I intend to do. So dealing with income inequality, the biggest idea that I think is the most effective is that the federal government and your next president care deeply about dealing with underemployment and unemployment, which means aspiring to full employment. And the way I would do that is I would tell any person in America who is underemployed, which is a lot of Iowans, or unemployed, that you will get the job training you need in the region where you live, in the industry you like, at a state school, a community college, or through an apprenticeship program or a not-for-profit, and it works. It absolutely works. You do it in Iowa well, you've got pipeline training here. We do it in New York well, we do it in every state. So imagine if the federal government made this the priority. Instead of that $1.5 trillion in tax cuts that overwhelmingly went to the largest companies in America and the most wealthy people that did not create economic growth, imagine spending those dollars on something like full employment. In terms of alleviating hunger, we have to fund supplemental nutrition. We have to fund food stamps. I have fought my entire 10 years in the Senate against my own party and against Republicans every time they cut the budget for food stamps. Because the truth is, the #1 recipient of a food stamp in America today is a child. And there should be no child going to bed hungry in this country. And so you've got to do the hard work of actually passing legislation to feed America. Now, you've got a lot of farmers here, you've got a lot of agriculture, and so there's a lot of ideas about how to create farm to fork, making sure the things we grow get into our public schools, get into our hospitals, making sure we deal with food deserts. There are places in rural America and inner city America where you can't buy fruits and vegetables at an affordable rate. And the one thing that most people don't understand is that poverty and hunger go hand in hand with obesity. Because the truth is, if you can't afford fruits and vegetables, you're going to feed your family the lowest cost food you can find, which is typically high in sugar, high in salt, not high in vitamins and minerals. It's the lowest quality, and so at the end of the month, when you've run out of food, you feed your children what you can, and unfortunately, it drives obesity. So I am 100% committed to dealing with poverty and hunger. This is the wealthiest country in the world. We should not have people earning less than the minimum wage or less than a living wage in any industry. And of course, you can raise the minimum wage to $15, and you can index it to inflation. And of course, you can make sure that we get more resources into communities to make sure they have them when they need them. And that's what I've done for the last 10 years in the Senate, doing it on a bipartisan basis.
We'll do one more question, and then she'll be around to mingle a little bit after, guys.
Go ahead.
Well, we have an outstanding group of candidates running this season, and it's exciting to be in Iowa.
Yes, here. Yeah, take my mic.
Hi, Ed.
Let everyone hear you. Be heard.
It's exciting to be in Iowa this time of year. And I'm wondering how you would answer this question. You don't need to identify the person, but of the various really cool ideas that are floating around and being offered up by Democrats, is there one or two or something that would be among the one that you find the most troubling, but maybe it's towards a good thing, made with a good spirit? And if so, how would you tweak it, or how would you go about dealing with that idea among the others that are running?
I've addressed all of them. So on Green New Deal, I think it's a great platform, but I would add putting a price on carbon. On debt-free college and free college, I like the idea of offering public service, national public service, as a way to change not only who we are as a nation, but actually provide the workforce that we desperately need. I love Medicare for all and single-payer health care, but I really love the way to get there, which is letting people choose it and buy in at a price they can afford over 4 or 5 years. So they're all great ideas, and I have specifics on how I would do it slightly differently. But I see my path in this election very differently than most. I come from a blue state of New York, but where I'm from is the red part of upstate New York. My first House district was a 2-to-1 Republican district. And I not only won it the first time by 6 points, but I won it the second time by 24 points. And I've not lost those 10 counties since. I continue to grow the support in these rural places with a lot of agriculture and rural manufacturing. And I've brought all of New York together more than any other elected leader in the history of the state with the highest vote threshold of 72%. That's higher than any presidential candidate or any statewide candidate in our country's history. And the reason is because I listen and I absorb people's concerns, and then I work for them no matter who they are or where they live. And so I do well in the red areas and the purple areas and the blue areas. And I do it in Congress. I actually pass legislation because of my background, because of where I'm from. I can reach across the aisle to any Republican, and I mean any Republican, and ask them, what can we work on together? I just passed a bill unanimously by working with Ted Cruz on ending sexual harassment in Congress. I can really work with anybody in the Senate. We have common ground. We do. And so even in the last Congress with the Republican House, Senate, and President, I passed 18 bills. Common sense things that would help Iowans, like more money for rural broadband, more money for Made in America manufacturing, more money for small businesses who, when you have a baby boomer owner and they want to sell and their kids don't want it, making it easier to sell it to their employees so you have more employee ownership. So I get things done because I work with everyone and I represent everyone. And that's why I believe I am the best person to take on President Trump. Because at the end of the day, it is not about President Trump. It's about having a vision for America that is bolder and braver than anything that's been offered so far. It's about health care as a right and not a privilege. It's about fixing our public schools. It's about full employment and dealing with underemployment. It's about the Green New Deal. It's having the courage to do the thing that no one else will do and finding the common ground with the rest of America to bring you together to get it done. That is what I am offering in this campaign. That is why I'm hoping to earn the support of Iowans, and it's why I'm hoping to be your next president of the United States. Thank you. Thank you all for coming, and I just want to leave you with a message. If you liked what you heard tonight, I would like you to support my campaign. Simply go to KirstenGillibrand.com, sign up, send $1. If you're really excited, please caucus for me. This is a campaign that is about you. It's about the people of this country who aren't being heard, and our voices will rise, because the truth is, when hope rises, fear loses, and brave wins.
My mom
Sorry. Very excited. I'm getting a little plaster moment. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, your question was really good. And you're going to come up to teach some big ideas a little bit because I think there's a way to look at these things that can be bipartisan. So that's what I'm trying to do. Sorry, we've got to still
She'll be right. She's going to come right over here. She's going to stick around. Okay?
I'm a bit of a nerd.
Here we go. Right over here.
You want her there? Okay. Okay. Are you good? You okay? All right, guys. I know exactly. I was saying she's going to do
more people announced since the last time I saw you. Are you going to change your strategy, do anything differently to try to break out of the, 18 or not possibly more candidates that are still left to announce in this primary?
I can promise you one thing, this is a marathon and not a sprint. And so I intend to take this campaign to every caucus goer in Iowa and every state in this country. And that's going to take time, but I believe that my candidacy is the strongest because I think the vision I have for this country is bolder and braver than anyone else's. I have a plan to actually get us there, and I have the experience to get it done.
The crowd is much smaller than what we saw Mayor Pete last night. Are you at all concerned about that?
No, because the truth is I'm here to represent everyone. And every person in this room matters, and they want to be heard. And to have Kirsten here with me, who has shown this state how brave she can be and how courageous she is, this is really meaningful to me.
And Kirsten, out of all there were so many candidates in the race. Out of all of them, what was it specifically about Senator Gillibrand that brought you to her?
Among the many attributes that she already has going for, it's her track record and her consistency on fighting for the brave issues, the tough issues, doing what's right even if it's not popular. That is really powerful, and people need to know about that.
And Kirsten knows a lot about that. It was not popular what she did. She was fired. She was immediately retaliated against. She was demeaned and she was devalued. And this country, we have to recognize we must value everyone. We must value women. And until you're willing to have equal pay for equal work and have affordable daycare and universal pre-K and paid leave and stop sexual harassment and sexual violence in the workplace, you're not going to get there. But when you have leaders like Kirsten who stands up and does what's right, even in the face of absolute retaliation and hatred, that's what this country needs. Brave women like Kirsten. Thanks, guys. Thank you for coming out. Very appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, when I get it, it's so helpful. It's so amazing. Really appreciate it. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, keep up the good work. That is person to person. Yeah. Living room by living room. Yeah.
I'm just curious.
I love Boston.
Because my son was the last
Our campaign headquarters in Troy, which is only 30 minutes from Boston Spa.
It just blew me away.
Absolutely. To you or to someone else, or just the signature?
It's my little autograph. I have a political one, and actually I can't find it. So, well, they start collecting them there. And I appreciate
student debt, we vitiate the debt after 10 years. So it's a good bill for retroactive. But going forward, if you're willing to go into education, you get your state school free. Yeah, no, I don't mean you specifically. Yeah, no, I'm sure all your debt is paid, but for all those young teachers in their 30s, they might not. Oh, yes, I bet that's right. Yeah, I bet it is. Yeah.
Thanks again.
Yeah. Read Michelle Obama's book instead.
Yeah,
Much nicer. Hi. Sorry, thank you. Hi, Nancy. How are you?
Hi, I'm Doug.
Hi, Doug. Thank you for coming.
The ceiling now so drastically lower than it had been.
Yes.
What do you feel about and the cap that's put on?
I think the cap should be much higher, and we should blow it, because the truth is, we in our best moments, we welcome refugees. In places like upstate New York, where they have a population that's diminishing, we welcome refugees, and they help the communities thrive. They start businesses, they start families, they reinvigorate neighborhoods that were left behind. So we know places in the upstate, refugees are value-added, wonderful communities that we can lift up, and then they lift us up. So I would do two things differently than President Trump. I would leave in ICE the anti-terrorism work that Homeland Security initiatives do. That's the only Homeland Security piece that is anti-terrorism. It's anti-human trafficking, anti-drug, anti-gun trafficking, and that you can fund. I would remove the enforcement removal operations. I would take out Homeland Security. I would actually put that into the Department of Justice. I would have real immigration judges that are not just employees of the Attorney General, but appointed for life, Article 1 courts, and have a proper asylum program. I would assign lawyers to asylum seekers so they have a process. I would let them go into the communities, because if they have a lawyer, they will come back for their court date, and then you can have a proper, humane process. I would not fund these for-profit prisons that are not locking up these children.
It's new that they're trying to start a groundswell. Maybe we'll be able to set a permanent cap at 95,000 instead of the 30,000 that it is now.
I'm not afraid of refugees. I believe in Emma Lazarus's poem, send us your tired and your poor, send us your huddled masses, you're free. That's what makes our country so strong. Our story is so much about immigrants and help build the country. We should celebrate that.
Anytime you're in town and you would like to come over and see, we have a connection.
I would love to do that. May I introduce you to Laura, my state director, so she can set that up? I would love to do that. Where's Laura? So Laura's the woman in black with a pink sweater.
Okay.
I would love to visit. I would be delighted to do that. I would really enjoy that. So she runs a refugee center, and we can go visit in one of our future trips. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Talk to Laura for me. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Yes, of course. Is it for you? It is.
ISSA. And I work for a nonprofit working to get more women to run for office.
So which one?
50-50 in 2020.
So I love that.
Yeah, we're Iowa Unique. We started in 2010. We elected 2 congresswomen in 2018, so that was exciting. Yes. Can I get a photo? Of course. Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate your message.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies, for coming. Oh, hi. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for all
Thank you. I'm very grateful.
We're excited.
Thank you for coming.
I would like to ask you, what is your opinion on prayer and religious practices in schools and public places?
I think people should be able to pray wherever they are and be able to have whatever religion they want. I think people should have the right to practice their religion. This country was founded on religion, freedom of religion, and it should be allowed. Thank you. I'm blessed to meet you. Thank you.
Can we get a picture?
Yes, of course you can. Thank you. Thank you for coming. I'm very grateful.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Interesting topic, but I is, and I feel like women put themselves in that situation because they want to make a difference, and they're ready for the fight. And so I'm just interested in your response.
I agree. So I think women are extraordinary leaders, and the breakthrough candidates in 2018 were women. It was people like Lucy McBath winning in the suburbs of Atlanta in a district that John Ossoff lost. And by violence because she lost her son to gun violence. It was Kirsten Gillibrand winning and running and winning in Arizona, running on poverty. What it's like to grow up homeless, and what it's like to live in an abandoned gas station, but for good public schools, people like her can never be a senator. So that's what the breakthrough moments were in 18. All these women. So anyone who says a woman can't run successfully didn't pay attention in 2018.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for your bravery. I think it's really awesome you're stepping up. I'm excited that there's multiple women, so we can see everything that you have to give.
See what women's leadership looks like in many forms. Exactly. It's good for the world. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. Hi, Mike. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, our pleasure. Unfortunately, we missed your speech, but we're friends of Kirsten. So.
Oh, thank you for coming back.
Thank you for
supporting her. Absolutely.
Of course. Glad to have you in Des Moines again.
Yeah, I understand. Any issues that you're most concerned about?
Do you have some on your mind?
Thank you for being here. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks again for coming. I appreciate your questions every time.
Yes,
There's a survey here, a Native American woman from the Muskogee settlement. We'd love to talk to you on your way
I
out.
would love to talk to her. Is she here? And she's the one who poured your wine. Oh. I didn't meet her. I met her when I came in. She has stars. She has stars. I'm going to answer her question as I grab my wine.
It's really strong.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much for coming.
Nice to meet you. Kirsten and I are in the Emerge Iowa class.
I'm so pleased about that.
I'm considering a run for U.S. Senate. It would be against Joe Ernst in 2020.
What's your name?
Kimberly Graham.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
Well, if you want to run, you should run. The truth is, if you're feeling called to it, you should do it.
Yeah.
Lovely to meet you.
I think we deserve better in Iowa, so.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarang.
Thank you for coming, Sarang.
Thank you for coming. The question or the issue that's on my mind, like you mentioned, is healthcare.
Yes.
Can you talk about kind of where we are with Obamacare, especially with the judicial things that are going on?
Yeah, the president is undermining Obamacare in every way, undermining the mandate, undermining the fact that you have to cover people with pre-existing conditions. And because he keeps doing that, it's making it impossible for people to find affordable coverage. And so they're anxious. People are very worried about their children, their future, their health. So I like Medicare for all for a lot of reasons. I like a not-for-profit public option. I believe we need to get this country to single payer so that we can actually bend the cost curve and have economies of scale. And the quickest way to do that is let everyone buy in at a price they can afford. And I think if you ask people to buy in at 4% of income, everybody can afford it. Or match it, and that creates a fund. Over time, if most of America buys in, you can make it an earned benefit, just like Social Security, where you buy in across your lifetime and it's always yours. And then it can't be taken away by the next president or the next president. It becomes your earned benefit.
Yep. Cool. Well, I hope it's going to happen. I think it's seriously the biggest issue.
It is, and I think we can get it done. I really believe it, because the country's ready.
We have to be. I mean, there's people dying.
Otherwise, people will die. Thank you.
Appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm a teacher here in Des Moines. I'm a preschool teacher. And I'm also very good friends with Laura, her stage director, and Haley. So it's really exciting to meet you finally. I just want to talk to you about preschool and preschool funding. So in Iowa, we only guarantee 10 hours of preschool for 4-year-olds.
Oh, that's not enough.
No, that's what I teach. Is I teach our universal pre-K 10 hours a week, and we have no transportation. So I have a lot of students, because my preschool is free, with language barriers, transportation barriers, financial barriers, all of those things. And so it's great that we have these 10 hours a week, but we fall short in so many other aspects.
Not enough.
No, I mean,
that's why I believe in universal pre-K. I think we should fund it fully so that every kid can get that full year in school before kindergarten, because the truth is, too many kids show up to kindergarten not ill-prepared.
I mean, it's insane, just the range of students I have. This is my first year as a teacher, so it's been a huge learning curve for me.
Just what they're exposed to up until that point. And for a lot of families, especially if there are two parents working or one parent working, they don't even necessarily know that reading to kids at night, doing letters and numbers early, that they absorb that. They don't know because this might be their first child, and they don't have a teaching background. And so that's the key, is to actually make sure that we have universal pre-K.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Thank you.
I do too. Can I get a picture with you real quick? I gave it to Haley.
Yeah, that's what you gotta go back into one more question.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, lighting's terrible. You want me to take it? Sorry.
Thank you, Haley.
Thank you.
One more question? Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. How are you right in front of this Thanks for being here.
God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Who had the question?
Hi, yes, thank you, Senator, for, I was not at the last gaggle, unfortunately, so I missed your being asked about the Mueller report, which of course is what everyone in DC cares about. So I have 3 questions for you. Are you concerned that HE Barr holding a news conference before the report is released? Is that a concern for you?
Well, I don't care if he has a news conference before he releases the report, as long as he releases the full report. I do not want a report that's redacted. Members of Congress look at confidential, top secret information regularly. We are given the authority to do that, and so we need to see the full report. I can understand if he needs to redact it for public release, for certain grand jury information, but he does not need to redact it for Congress, and if he does, we will subpoena the document ourselves.
So you believe that a less redacted copy for members is unacceptable?
Correct.
And what do you believe the next move is after this? A subpoena? Well, a subpoena of who? Of the president?
Of the full Mueller report.
Oh, of the full Mueller report. Okay. Okay.
Do you want to hear from special counsel as well?
Do I want to hear from
The special counsel?
From Mueller directly? Yes, I would love to have him take us through, particularly in a confidential setting, his entire investigation. Whether we'll have the opportunity to do that or not, I don't know. But I do think the American public have a right to know what's in the Mueller report, what was investigated, what was found, and to have full transparency and accountability. And they deserve that. Even if you have to redact names or certain grand jury material, there's no reason why the American people can't know exactly what's in the Mueller report. We have a right to know.
Okay, thank you guys. Great.
I love it. Right here, or where do you want it? In front of the Gillibrand 20.
This is my friend Hallie. Hi, Hallie. Hallie's a teenager.
Come on, Hallie. She asked me a good question.
Yes,
she did really well.
Yep.
Why don't you put Hallie in the middle? You get in on the other side. And I love the red.
Thank you.
So great.
Thank you, guys. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Yeah. And you answered your question?
Yes, I did. She did it. She did very well about faith and prayer. And I think anyone should be able to pray and express their faith wherever they are. And I agree.
I know you feel strongly about that.
Yeah. I feel strongly about that. I go to 2 Bible studies a week and a prayer breakfast.
I have a Bible study right after this.
Yes. What are you studying?
It's called Purpose Study, so we're not just studying the book of the Bible.
Having purpose.
Because it's so, it's specifically a high school Bible study, talking about figuring out what our purpose is in life.
No, that's so interesting. So one of the stories in the Bible that helped to inform me of my purpose was the parable of the talents. And it's a parable in Matthew that you can read about how each of these individuals was given a certain amount of money to do things with. And when the landowner came back, he was angry that the one guy buried his talents, and he was delighted that the other 2 invested them and doubled the money and did something with it. And I took from that God gives us all gifts and talents and abilities, and our job is to use it to make the most and help the most people. And so the reason why I chose public service was because God gave me all these gifts that I should be using to help others.
Yeah, that's such a cool story.
Yeah. So good luck in your study.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you.
Ms. Laura?
Philip committed full copies for you. So
You're really going to caucus for me?
I am. I think so.
Can I have? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I bet you're going to be good at it too.
I hope so.
I think you're very persuasive.
Thank you.
And you're getting your emerge training, so you'll also be very smart.
I'm not getting it.
You're not going to get it? No.
Maybe someday, but not right now.
But Kirsten is, so you might want to join her.
I would love to, yeah.
You should. They have Emerge Iowa.
Yeah, I know. Actually, Leslie, who you talked to earlier, is a good friend of mine. And
she's going to do it this year.
And she's actually the head of the board.
You should do it too.
I will.
Can we get a picture of the caucus card?
Sorry. This way? Is this
so
way you want it?
exciting.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Can we post it?
Of course,
I'm
yeah.
very excited. This is great. Image caucus for Kirsten Gillibrand because he wins.
I love it too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, take care, everybody. Thank you. Take care. Thank you. Bye. Take care.
Senator.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
I did.